Welcome to the Swedish Junior Hockey Podcast. Jacob Dahlin, your host here from, well, how are we going to say this, Ryan? From California, from Canada, or North Carolina? How do you describe yourself?
When people ask me where I'm from, I say North Carolina.
All right, good. So Ryan Hay, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so let's start with where are you? You're sitting in the forest right now.
Yeah, I'm sitting in North Vancouver, British Columbia, in my billet house.
And the ceiling, for those who are listening on the podcast, you don't see the ceiling, but it's actually a tapestry of trees, canopy
Yeah,
trees.
yeah, it looks like the forest.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on. So you and I have a little bit of background. We're both here in North Carolina from the beginning. You played against my son. Never played with him on a team, right?
I did not played against them a bunch of times, but never on the same team.
Yeah. And so known you and the family for a pretty long time, and awesome to kind of. Now you did play in a tournament, I believe, in the CCM that one year in
Oh
Chicago.
yeah, in Chicago, we did play on that one team. That's
That was
right.
in the spring, I think. So it was kind of fun, and
Oh yeah,
that was a fun trip.
definitely was.
All right, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, you're in North Van. What? How do you describe it? North Vancouver.
Yep, I'm in the district of North Vancouver in BC.
Yeah. So what we want to talk about is, of course, we'll go back and talk about your background, and then main topic here today, and I think it's a timely one. Lots of stuff is happening in the British Columbia hockey, junior hockey, with BCHL and the AJHL and the 5 teams that just announced last week. Um, um, but with that, I thought it would be cool to talk about where you play, and which is in the PIJHL, which is I have to look at my notes, Pacific Junior Hockey League. But then there's 2 other kind of sister leagues, and
Correct.
you and I kind of talked offline about the speculation a little bit of next year, how
Yep.
and Hockey Canada, and I think it'd be a good opportunity for both of us to kind of chat about that topic of how it's like there, what's the level like, and
Hmm.
so on, and so on. But why don't we start? It says, for those who don't know, if you look on Elite Prospects, Ryan Hay, Hay, and I went away from it. Defenseman, hasn't always played defenseman, so we'll talk about that. But you're a defenseman, 5'11", 185. Originally from Newport Beach, California, but I know you're a dual citizen with family from Canada, and currently in the Junior A in North Vancouver Wolfpack. So, but take us back. All right, how did you end up in Newport Beach, California?
So my mom was born and raised in Calgary, Alberta, and my dad was born in Toronto and moved to Calgary, and then his parents ultimately moved to California. And after high school, my dad went back to Calgary, where he met my mom. They were both in school there for a couple of years, and when they finished up, well, actually, when my dad was finished with school, my mom was still in school. They decided to move back to California, and that's where I was born. Lived there for just under 2 years. And then my dad's job in California took him out to Charlotte, NC, and that's been home ever since.
Yep. Outside of, I think, Indian Trail, right?
Mint Hill.
Mint Hill.
So
Okay.
one town
Cool.
over.
Yep. So you're so for those who don't know, little small suburbs of Charlotte, North Carolina. Awesome place. And grow up there in mainly in the, so that was back in the day when it was Charlotte Checkers, Junior Checkers from the beginning.
Yep, it was Junior Checkers, and then it turned into the Rush, and now it's Queen City Royals.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Took a little detour in Greer with the Carolina Rage for a
Yeah, I
couple of
spent 2
years.
years down there with the Rage. My 13U and 14U year, I played for the Carolina Rage, and then came back to Queen City.
And then a little short stint with the North Carolina Golden Bears, and then all of a sudden you decided, because I thought for sure you were going to go and become a pilot.
Yeah, I definitely thought about that, and but hockey is my true passion, and it's something I'm hoping to pursue through college, which is why I'm playing junior hockey. So I mean, I'm just all in on hockey.
So, but before that, you ended up let's see here. So after your U16 year, or you're after in the middle of your U18 year, you had the opportunity to go to, let me see what it was. Was it Honey Baked or no, you went to CompuWare first.
Correct. Yeah. I was playing for the Golden Bears U18 team, and then we went up to Detroit and played against CompuWare, and they lost a defenseman, and then their coach reached out to me asking if I'd be interested in making the switch, and I decided to go ahead with that. And I played the majority of last season in CompuWare.
Yep.
Had a great time there, and in the spring I went back up to Michigan to try out for teams, and decided to go back to Honey Baked at the beginning of this season.
Yep.
So yeah, spent about a year and a half in the Detroit area
And
playing for
what was
teams.
that? What was that like? Because we haven't really talked too much about. I mean, there's really three meccas, I would say, of high school or U18 high school age hockey. You got the Northeast hotbed with the prep schools
Yeah,
and some of the AAA teams there. You got the Detroit, or I guess you would just call it the Michigan model, and then you got the high school in Minnesota.
yeah.
A little bit different than, I mean, growing up in North Carolina, there's good hockey, but it's not concentrated like it is up there. What's the big difference?
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many good teams in such a small area. Like, I think there's 9 teams in Michigan, 9 AAA teams, and there's probably only 115 in the country. So, I mean, a good chunk of the AAA teams are right there in Michigan. So, it's pretty much every league game is a highly competitive game. You don't really take many nights off. It's all good, high level hockey. There's always someone watching, and I mean, you see it everywhere. You go to the grocery store, you can see 2 different teams like apparel on just random kids. It's hockey's up, it's everywhere in Michigan.
And not so much travel. I mean, I think that for
No.
those who don't know, living in Charlotte, which is a big city, but still, a tier 2 youth programs. And if you wanted to try to make it to the next level, sure, they have junior with USPHL, but if you want to play in college, you pretty much have to move somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
but and the AAA programs down here means lots of travel and airfare
Lots of
travel
travel.
and a little bit of an advantage of being in a concentrated spot like that. Uh, but then this year, so let's go into this kind of how in the heck did you end up in Vancouver, a little far away from North Carolina?
Yeah. So I was just playing in Detroit, just going throughout my season, and then the general manager reached out to me. They were looking for a stay-at-home defenseman, and they were having a hard time kind of they were giving up too many goals basically, and they reached out to me to see if I'd be interested in coming out for a tryout. So this was on a Saturday. I remember this because it was just happened. We were in the middle of a Maha showcase, and my dad was actually up there, and we were talking to the general manager on the phone. And my dad and I thought it'd be a good experience to go kind of get my feet wet in juniors, see what it was like. And 2 days later, I was on a plane going to North Vancouver. I was there for a week. I practiced all week, and then I watched 2 games. I wasn't able to play because of paperwork stuff, but I mean, I watched the 2 games, and it was good hockey. And they ended up offering me a spot on the team to finish the rest of the season there. So I went back to Detroit for about a week and a half to finish up my last few games before Christmas break. Then Christmas break came. I went back to Charlotte, and I sat down with my parents, and decided that it was gonna be the right move for my career to move on to North Vancouver, get my foot in the door at the junior A level, and start playing against older, better players. And
Yeah.
that's kind of how I ended up here.
And interesting, since you are a dual citizen, Canadian and US, did that help out, or in that is the PIJHL, is that restricted with Americans or Canadians?
It is now that they've been elevated to junior A. They follow the same rules as the CJ, all the leagues in the CJ, so they do have to follow the import rules, but it really wasn't a factor for my team because I only had 2 kids. out of country. So, I mean, had I been going to a team that had maxed out the imports, it would have been helpful, but it really didn't matter for me. They
Yeah.
just they rostered me as an American because it was right coming up on the trade deadline and they knew they weren't getting any more imports. So it could have been helpful, but in the situation, it really didn't mean too much.
But for the Swedish listener here, it is a closed league to Europeans, right?
I do believe so, with an exception. There's a few
There are some Ukrainians that
Ukrainians,
got
they
some
got
exceptions
status, but yeah, I do believe there's no Europeans.
in there. Yeah. So, but a little bit of, you mentioned kind of paperwork and going that from one country to another, because what you were talking about here is going from a USA Hockey rostered program, and now you had to go to a Hockey Canada program. So yeah, you have a Canadian passport, which helps from a travel standpoint.
Yep.
I would assume. But how did that go? Walk us through kind of the process of changing. Did the team kind of do that for you, or did you have to apply and register through Hockey Canada?
So the way before anything could move forward with North Van was I had to get completely released from Honey Baked. So they had to sign off on my Michigan Amateur Hockey Association release saying that I was no longer on their roster. And then there was also, I believe, another form that said I was in good standing with Honey Baked, saying that I wasn't leaving with anything outstanding like balance or anything like that. And then I just had to sign the form that it was called like USA Hockey / Hockey Canada junior transfer form. So it filled out where I was coming from and where I was going to. Both the directors of each pro, or the general manager here, had to sign it, and the director of Honey Baked had to sign it. And then I just registered for a Hockey Canada number and sent that to the Wolfpack, and they kind of just took care of the rest of it for me.
How is there a transfer fee between Hockey Canada and USA Hockey? International transfer?
I believe so, but I don't know what it is.
That's okay. That's all right. Because I know that for the Europeans, that can be a big deal going from Sweden to the US. If you do an international transfer, it's $1,500, which is
Oh
not
wow.
cheap. Yeah.
I know it was not that much. I think if anything, it was like $50.
Okay. All right. Yeah. It could be a pretty substantial transfer, and I think the same thing between Hockey Canada and USA Hockey. If you went to from one roster to another roster within season, create some financial disincentives when it comes to junior teams,
Yeah.
and these type of things. But sounded like that things went pretty smooth.
Yeah.
When you were in Detroit, you billeted there, so not necessarily a new thing for you going to Vancouver.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been billeting for 3 seasons, one in Boston, one in Detroit, with a brief stint in Raleigh, and then this year in Detroit, now Vancouver.
That's right, because you were at North Shore in Boston. I forgot about that
That's
too.
correct. My second year U16, I went up to Boston
Yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah. Poor parents, they didn't get to see you much.
Yeah, no, they have not seen me much. The pandemic happened. I was home too much, and they shipped me out after that. Got sick of
Yep,
me.
yep, yeah. They were. I remember talking to your dad around that time, and he said life was so good, calm, and the only thing he had to do is send you money.
No, pretty much. Yep.
Just kidding. Anyway, so all right. So what do you think? So what was your first impression when you went to practice? Because that was a kind of a good thing, right? To go there, go practice on both ends. I'm sure they were evaluating you, and you had the chance to figure out, is this what I want to do? Because U18 AAA for Honey Baked is arguably you're playing against the best of the best in that area. And what was the differences? What was the first impressions?
Very first skate, very first impression was these guys are way stronger.
Okay.
Like in the corners and like in AAA along the boards. I'm a pretty strong guy. Like I'm not small by any means. I would be able to hold my own pretty well. But like I remember this perfectly. It was the first rep. I was going into the corner for like we were doing a battle drill, and I was going against Matthew Carneal, and he's a like 6'2", 20-year-old, and he kind of threw me around a little bit. Like I wasn't prepared for it. The guys there are just stronger. They're more close to grown men than they are boys, if anymore. So my
Yep.
first impression was, wow, I'm gonna have to get stronger. So and then just like doing line rushes and accepting rushes and things like that, I just realized they're faster too. It's just everything was bigger and stronger and faster. Like everything was just ramped up a good notch.
And what about from an organizational level? You're going from a U18 AAA, but it's still considered youth hockey, right?
Correct.
So you're going into juniors. What are the biggest differences? Talk about the locker room as an example.
Yeah, so a lot more is handled by amongst the players in junior hockey. So in the locker room in AAA, the coaches would be in there often. I mean, if there's an issue, the coaches usually solved it, or there's a disciplinary action needed, it was usually through the coaches at some in AAA. But in junior hockey, you have your coaches and your general manager who they coach, they set the lineup, they talk to you about hockey, and that's usually like they're friendly and they're there for you if you need it, but that's usually as far as that goes in terms of locker room things. So like any issues in the locker room in junior or anything like that, that's all gone through the captains. The captains take care of any problems in the locker room. If anyone's acting out, they nip it in the butt. Um, there's a lot more on the players in junior hockey. You have to take more responsibility for your actions and such. And yeah, it's just falls more onto us as players.
Yeah. What give me some examples of things that were like, ooh, I wasn't didn't know about this.
Um,
Do you have court?
we do have court. We have and then just rookie duties and stuff like that. We didn't have in AAA, so like I'm a rookie now, so I have to do whatever a vet tells me whenever they tell me to do it. So yeah, we just yeah, like taking out the trash, filling up the water bottles. There's just basically just chores, nothing crazy.
Picking up
So
pucks.
yeah, picking up pucks, taking out the extra sticks for warm ups and practice. It's just the rookies do a lot of the chores in the locker room, things like that.
What's your experience with that in terms of you think it's a good thing or a bad thing?
I personally think it's a good thing because if someone comes into a junior team and they were the top guy in AAA or prep or wherever they were playing, it's kind of it's a piece of humble pie. It kind of brings everyone back down to earth and gets everyone on the level headed. So I mean, it's nothing crazy. It's just like a little reminder you're still new in this league. You have to like earn your ice time. I personally think it's a good thing.
What about on the bus? Specific seats?
In the Pacific Junior Hockey League, it's all Greater Vancouver area, so we actually don't bus.
Okay. All
We
right.
don't ever have to stay out of town. We come back to the billets every night after every game, which is I personally think a huge plus. I think our furthest game is not even 100 miles away.
Nice.
It's
Nice.
all pretty central to Vancouver, so I personally love it. Get to sleep in my own bed every night.
Okay. So give me some examples. Have you gotten fined yet?
I have not.
You have not. All right.
I have
Well,
not.
when
But
this
granted, we have not done court since I've been here.
okay. All right. I was going to say now when you're on this podcast, you will be fined. So
Oh, I know.
it'll be good. It'll be good. All right, let's
Oh, yeah.
talk a little bit about so in Vancouver, I mean in British Columbia, which I'm assuming Vancouver is the capital or
I know it's the biggest city, but I'm not sure if it's the capital.
all right, yeah, I don't know the answer. So anyway, so you have the BCHL, which is of course the big league, which so what's your impression of the BCHL? Have you been to any of the games?
I have not, but we've had a couple BCHL kids come out and skate with us that were either on Christmas break or coming back from injury. So I've got a little taste of it, but I have not
Yeah.
been to any games.
I mean, I would argue, just for me, BCHL is right there in between USHL and the NOL, I would say.
I would
And
completely agree.
and then now, of course, they left Hockey Canada allowed European imports and I think more US imports. I'm not sure exactly what the changes are with the rules, but it has made them stronger from it hasn't had a mass exodus of players that
Mhm.
some people thought. I would argue that it got stronger. Whether or not
Yeah.
it's going to remain strong, it doesn't, it definitely hasn't fell off year one.
Yeah, not by any means.
Now, year two, they're announcing that the top five teams from the AJ is moving over, including Brooks, which I would argue would it's going to be interesting to see, but probably going to be one of the top teams in the BCHL as well.
Yeah.
Um, it is one of the programs that graduates the most D1 commitments from Hockey Canada. Of course, the major juniors from OHL, WHL, and the Q are not eligible. So when you're looking
Mhm.
at where does the NCAA D1 commits come from, it is by far BCHL. AJHL is second, and Brooks specifically has a big chunk of the AJ. So, you know, we'll see how this is going to translate. It's certainly going to be interesting. But what are your thoughts? We talked a little bit about speculation here about what the landscape in the junior A is not going to stay the same next year.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
Are you guys so for you as a player being US grown here, what's the chatter around the locker room? Everybody talks about it, I'm sure, right?
Yeah, so word on the street is that the top team, so the way it works is there's three junior A leagues in British Columbia this year after the elevation. There's the Vancouver Island Junior Hockey League, the Pacific Junior Hockey League that I am in, and the I think it's the Kootenay International Hockey
Yep.
League.
Yep.
So those are the three junior A leagues in BC, and the at the end of the hockey season, there's what's called the Cyclone Taylor Cup, and that is the champions of all three leagues plus the host, which this year it's in Kimberley, British Columbia. So it's kind of like the championship of all the BC leagues. So that's going to go on in, I believe, April. But what I believe is going to happen is the top teams from each of these leagues are going to combine and make a CJHL British Columbia Junior A Hockey League that'll next season. So that's kind of the word on the street right now. And that's kind of what it's looking like it's going to happen. But I don't really know what teams are involved or what that entails. I mean, I don't have much knowledge about it. I've only been here 3 weeks. Until maybe a month and a half ago, I didn't really know much about BC hockey at all.
You and I like, so it's good. That's why it's fun to talk about these things. Let me ask you too, is it because this is a little bit of difference between in the tier two, it's a little cleaner in the US when you got USA hockey, you have USHL as tier one, and the NOL is the tier two, and then you have the other programs like the NA, EHL, and the USPHL is considered tier three, and then NCDC is kind of out there as an independent, and so on. But NCDC and NOL are tuition free.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, NCDC you pay billet fees. Canada is a little bit different. It's not necessarily tuition free everywhere.
Yeah, from what I've heard, pretty much everywhere in Canada, including the AJ, has some sort of fee. Like it varies based on the caliber of the league, but there is fees involved in every league in Canada. Except I don't think I think the BCHL is privately funded. I don't think there's any fee there, but
Correct.
everything under the CJHL has some fee for all the players, whether it's $500 or $2,000. It really varies depending on the league, the ownership, and just the funding that each team has.
What's the number of people that are attending? How many spectators do you have in the games?
Um, for our home games, it probably varies between like 150, and then when we have like promotional nights, sometimes we get around 500.
Nice.
So it's fun. We have a small rink, so it seems really full, but there's not that many people there.
Yeah.
But it's definitely fun.
Yeah, and I think that, but the big difference is that it's not like the USPHL Elite and Premier and the NA where you're looking at maybe 10,000 plus billet fees. It is
No.
cheaper to play in Canada, but not always free.
Yeah, correct.
And what about equipment? Do they provide deals, or do you have to pay your own way with equipment?
We get helmets, pant shells, and gloves, and free skate sharpenings, and we get I think we have a stick deal with one of the local shops. So
Yeah.
it's we don't get sticks, but we do have a deal with one of the local shops.
So, and talk about the coaching staff because I think this is a big difference when you look on elite prospects between the junior programs in Canada. Very big difference in number of coaches and the staff around. What's it like in your team? Do you have a you said you had a general manager who is the head coach?
Our head coach is Mike Borelli.
And is he also the general manager, or is he is
No,
strictly the head coach? And then so you
he's
got a
just the head
GM
coach.
who's the business
Yeah,
op.
we have our GM who's also he's our assistant coach, but we have an independent head coach. So our general manager is Matt Sampson. Our head coach is Mike Borelli. And then we have two other assistant coaches.
Okay.
So we have usually four guys on the bench for every game.
Yeah. Are these guys full time or are they volunteers or
Our head coach, they're at every single practice game and everything. I do believe our assistant coaches have other careers,
yep.
but I do believe, like, I know this is our GM's full-time job, and I know that this is our head coach's full-time job.
Yeah. I just think that it's you know, that's a pretty good staff for it's not it's definitely a structure that has a good strong base versus
Mhm.
some that are like, yeah, the GM is the head coach and they have a volunteer assistant coach or two
Yeah,
that, you know, and the meals are pizza from Little Caesars,
yeah,
so and I
yeah.
think
We're definitely taken care of. We have usually forwards coach, a defense coach, head coach kind of going back and forth, and our other assistant coach is just kind of going back and forth. One of the assistant coach that doesn't work with the forwards. He usually runs the special teams units and stuff like that. So it's not like falling all on one person. It's definitely a well-oiled machine.
yeah, and then you probably have a billet coordinator and billet parents and yada yada
Yep.
yada.
Great billets.
Yeah. Um, what's it like in a week, and how does that compare to U18 AAA with ice time, skills practice, games, that kind of stuff?
We have more games in a week usually than there's usually more games in U18. But it's pretty much the same amount of hockey. We practice usually get Mondays off. Um, Depending upon the game schedule for that week, but we tend to have Mondays off. And then we practice usually Tuesday through Friday. Sometimes we have a game sprinkled in there in the week and have games on the weekend, usually either Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday. Or like this week, we have a game Thursday. So we play Thursday and Sunday. So it's usually 2 to 3 games a week
Yeah.
and practice other days. And usually we get at least one full day off a week.
Yeah. And so let's look at your roster age-wise. I think because this is cool to kind of get really nerdy about, but it looks like the D squad is pretty young, but the
Yeah,
four
we are all pretty much all rookies except for one player.
which is probably not common. I mean, if you look at
No.
the forwards, you have a lot of O3s in here. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight O3s. So, which I'm
Yeah, we're
assuming
pretty
there's,
veteran up front.
yeah. Goalies. Oh, golly, you got 7 goalies on the
No,
roster.
our elite prospects is pretty out of date. We have three,
Yeah.
206s and an 03.
Yeah. It also says on Elite Prospects right now it shows 12 defensemen, but I'm assuming you got 8.
7.
7. All right. Well, at least you got one extra so you can run
Hmm.
practices a little bit
Yeah,
convenient. So school wise, you're because you graduated in last year, right?
correct.
So are you taking some classes or are you taking this as
Yeah, I'm taking community college classes through Central Piedmont Community College um under the credits to stay eligible for NCAA, but also just trying to knock some of my prerequisites out of the way while I'm playing juniors.
yeah.
Gotta try to stay on top of it, not lose all my brains.
Are you have you been able to are you doing all asynchronous classes where
Yeah, I've been
you
able
know,
to do them all online.
yeah, with the 3 hour time difference, it's a little challenge to be in even online synchronous where you're logging on at the same time is a challenge.
Yeah, it's been nice that they're all asynchronous. It's usually pre-recorded lectures, so I can kind of just watch the like teaching part of the course whenever it's convenient and then just do my schoolwork. They usually give me like all my assignments on Monday and they give you till Friday to get them all done. So it's nice with the junior hockey schedule to be able to work at your own pace and whenever it's convenient, not have to worry about sitting in a 2 hour lecture on a Zoom.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit here, looking towards the future. So how long is the season? When's the last regular season game for you guys?
I
Beginning
think
of
around
March?
February 15th.
Okay, so it's pretty early. Okay.
Yeah.
And are you guys you guys, I think I looked and you said, I think I saw that you were third in the division.
Yes, correct. We just clinched a playoff spot about a week ago.
Oh, nice.
Yep.
Um, so what does that mean? Playoffs could how long does the season run and then what is where I'm going at?
Yeah, so the playoffs are 7 game series with an exception of the play-in series on each side. So the play-in series is a 3 game series between the fourth and the fifth seed to see who's going to get in. That's a 3 game series. And then so after the regular season, all the teams that are top 3 in each division usually get a week off of games for the play-in series to take place, and everyone just kind of like recharge the batteries for playoffs. Um, and then yeah, so it's usually the 1 versus the 4 on each side, and then the 2 versus the 3, and then the winner of each series plays each other, and then it goes to the championship game. So Cyclone Cups at the beginning of April, which is usually when all the leagues are done
Yeah.
with their playoffs. So playoffs go all the way to the end of March, essentially.
So yeah, so you're hoping to be up in the getting into the rainy season in British
Yeah,
Columbia.
hopefully we make it all the way to Cyclone. That's our ultimate goal. But we're just taking it one game at a time. We have a pretty big game coming up this Thursday, actually, playing Richmond Sockeyes, and they've lost like 1 game. Yeah, so should be a weird test.
Yeah, they have 38-1. Their goal differential is 241 for and 92 against. So they're only 149 goals in the plus. Um, so it's pretty good. So that'll be fun. We can keep up. Are they televising these on YouTube or they have their own channel?
All our games are on Flow Hockey.
On Flow Hockey. Okay. Is that a paid? I haven't looked into that. Is that a paid prescription? A
Yeah,
subscription?
it's basically just Hockey TV's new name.
Okay.
Yeah, I do believe Flow Hockey acquired Hockey TV.
Okay. All right. That's
Don't quote
awesome.
me on that, but that's what I think happened.
Yeah. So how does it work since you came in not at the beginning of the season and came kind of the traditional way? Because I would imagine that this gives you a lot of, if we're looking forward, you have options of going juniors in the US, or you don't know what it's going to look like in Canada in the future. So returning could be an option for you there, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Uh,
assuming they get the bump to the combined league, it would definitely be a great option to come back.
yeah. I would imagine everybody's in the same position to be like, yeah, I mean, the point about all of this is eventually advancing to be able to be in a great spot to be able to be looked at for NCAA. or U Sports for that matter. I mean, it's not a
Yeah.
bad option in Canada. But how does it work? So what's the chatter around? Like, is there a lot of them are looking at the end of the season tryout camps? What's the difference between main camps in the NOL and the tryout camps or the ID camps in the CJHL?
So spring camps are, or the ID camps as you call them, are essentially just like they're basically a tryout for main camp. It's kind of like a pre-draft camp in the NOL like they have.
Yep.
So you if a team's interested in you, they might invite you right to main camp, but oftentimes you're gonna have to go to their spring camp first. You're gonna have to do well, and then usually they might sign a couple of LOIs, which is like a tender out of spring camp, but you usually just get invited back to main camp, and then they usually pick the team out of there.
And I know that this is all kind of because you haven't been there that long, so I'm sure that you're learning the ropes, but you hear people
Yep.
talk about it, right? So, but
Yep.
you know how it is in the US where pre-drafts can be a money grab and pretty much everybody that wants to get to go to a main camp, and now main camps has, 200 people in them and stuff like that.
Exactly.
What do
Yep.
you hear about Hockey Canada? Is it kind of the same way where the spring camp is like the pre-draft, or is it a little bit more select?
Um, from what I've heard, the spring camps are very hit or miss depending on the organization.
Yep.
If it's an organization with deep pockets, it's usually more worthwhile. But if it's an organization that has to do a lot of fundraising and stuff in the off season, it tends to be 12 teams, 400 kids. So it's just kind of have to do your research before going, it seems like. Yeah, it's just kind of what a lot of the boys around the room say. They're like, just be careful because you don't want to, like, for someone like me coming from North Carolina, you don't want to fly across the continent to just basically play a glorified pickup game.
Yeah. So how do you look at that in terms of, because you know that you're still, even though you're a new guy, so you're not gonna have enough games to be able to. I mean, you certainly got an advantage of a kid that is coming directly out of U18, at the end of the season. But
Yeah.
you're still kind of a new guy. So but you also have to balance that to main camps in the NOL.
Yeah, this is true. I don't know. It's just personally I just kind of look at elite prospects and look at the number of guys aging out and see where the real opportunity is. If someone's telling me there's a lot of opportunity, but they have 4.05 right-handed D that played there last year, I have a hard time believing that there really is opportunity because they're gonna have guys that have 2 years left in my same position. So I mean, I just like to do my research and kind of see how it goes, see what it looks like, and just see if I know anybody on the team and talk to them and see what it's truly like. But yeah, I
Yeah.
just genuinely try to do a lot of research beforehand.
So what's your kind of wrapping it up here? But what's your recommendation in terms of, because I mean you didn't know anything, you stepped out on faith here and kind of, yeah, this would be a cool thing to do and good hockey. But have you regretted it, or I'm saying that I know you haven't regretted it, but what do you tell people that don't know anything about the league that you're in, and would you recommend it?
I would absolutely recommend it. We like there's a lot of, if you look throughout the teams in the league and look through their elite prospects, there's a lot of guys that have WHL experience. It's usually younger guys. It's a very much so developmental league. It's a great stepping stone. It's really good hockey. It's just I would absolutely recommend it to get your foot in the door, or like even like our guys here that are 20-year-olds. I know a lot of them have good solid Division 3 offers, good U Sport offers. I personally think this is a great place to play junior hockey, whether you're using it as a stepping stone or if you're in for all 3 years. I don't see many downsides of playing here.
Yeah, other than that it's pretty far to travel.
Yeah, other than it's all the way across the continent. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're going to do the traditional questions. You listened to a few episodes here, but you always ask. Of course, you're still a young guy, but you met yourself at 17. You just turned 19, by the way. Happy birthday.
Thank
Uh,
you.
uh, so you met yourself at 17, 2 years ago. What advice would you give yourself, that things you know now that you didn't know when you were 17?
Um, in terms of hockey, I would just say don't be in such a rush. Like I was always in such a rush. Like I have to make it to this league. I have to make it on this team or whatever. Like nobody's path is different. Just like enjoy the ride and work as hard as you can in wherever situation you put yourself in or you find yourself in, and everything's going to work out for a reason. Just don't be in such a rush. It's kind of
Nice,
my biggest piece of advice.
nice. All right, so here's the Swedish question that we ask everybody, which is we have a partnership with TargetAid.com, which is a fundraising organization in Sweden, and who knows, they may grow into. We'll put a plug in here for James Reason, who's the main guy behind TargetAid. But the initiative that we have is to highlight a team that is kind of the team in my heart. So uh, that's the initiative. So if I was going to ask you, what's the team in your heart?
Um, that's tough. I had so many good memories, but I'd probably have to go with 16U Queen City Royals.
All right.
That year it was just a brotherhood. Like it was so much fun. Like I've never really had a bad experience with hockey, but that year was just fun. Like every day. There was really no bad days.
That's awesome. So Queen City Royals in Charlotte, North Carolina, is what we're going to put under the Ryan Hay header, and we'll see how we can help out, put some content for them through the targetaid.com website. Ryan, it's been a pleasure. We'll catch you. I know you need to kind of organize the Boxing Day
Oh
hockey
yeah.
hockey game. That was pretty cool that you set up a couple of years ago. So we need to do something similar at some point, getting the boys together.
Yeah, absolutely. I
All right.
really appreciate you having me.
Thanks a bunch.